You can learn a lot about a person from the way they fold laundry. For instance, my wife folds my boxers into perfect squares, tucks them into the drawer like origami coffins. I used to think it was a sign of care until I found a second, identical set of my underwear folded the same way in the bottom of her gym bag. She doesn't work out. Never has. The only thing that bag was ever used for was therapy Thursdays. That detail didn't punch me in the face. It just sat in my gut like a block of frozen meat, thawing slowly into a sickness I couldn't ignore. I didn't say a word. I didn't flip the table or scream accusations. I zipped the bag back up with surgeon's precision, placed it exactly as I'd found it, and left it there like a wiretap. I needed her to think I was still the idiot husband buying into her healing process. So I played my role. We'd been in marriage counseling for 3 weeks by then. I let the therapist watch me struggle to trust again, rubbed my temples like a man haunted by indecision. My wife wept during those sessions, said things like, "I never meant to hurt you," and "I was broken back then." Interesting word, then, as if betrayal was a season you shed like autumn leaves. She even pulled out the big guns: childhood trauma, or parents' divorce, spiritual emptiness. I nodded, held her hand, asked the therapist what I could do to help her feel safe. All the while, I was collecting. Not evidence for the court. That would be too easy. I was collecting her trust. Building it brick by brick with smiles and late-night talks and slow, deliberate vulnerability. You see, the cruelest revenge isn't destruction. It's resurrection. I wanted to bring her back to life emotionally, fully, get her so deeply entangled in the idea of our reconnection that she'd forget how it ever felt to be on the edge. I made it a point to never bring up the affair again. Not even once. That's what really made her relax. She started leaving her phone out again, even showed me pictures she took on a walk one afternoon. A park bench. A squirrel. A duck pond. Not a single shot of her fake therapist street this time. Progress. She smiled differently now, less defensive, more real. But I knew it wasn't love she was feeling. It was safety. False safety. That's what she needed to truly open up again. She began asking me about our future, hinted at a vacation just for the two of us. I told her she deserved it. "You've worked so hard to change," I said, and kissed her forehead. That night, while she slept, I ordered 2 plane tickets. One in her name. One under the name of her old college roommate, Emily, the one she hadn't spoken to in years because she was too intense. I picked a remote Airbnb in the mountains. No cell service. No distractions. Just trees, snow, and the echo of broken promises. My plan wasn't to confront her there. No, that would be too quick. I needed her to feel something first, real joy. I wanted to hear her laugh again, not a performative laugh, but the kind that slips out when someone thinks they've truly been forgiven. I wanted her to look at me with adoration. Then I would cut the string and watch her fall from that height with no parachute. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let me take you back to the drawer. The gym bag. The spare set of boxers. I did some digging. Not the digital kind. No browser histories or GPS pings. I went analog. A paper calendar she forgot I'd gifted her last Christmas. She marked her therapy days with a little heart and wrote cryptic notes beside them. Progress, on one. Big breakthrough, on another. And then, one that made me pause. His story today. Unreal crying face dot. Whose story? The therapist? Her own? No. It was his. The man she met for coffee every Thursday at the same cafe 2 blocks from the counseling center. I followed her once. Sat in the car half a block down. Watched her laugh over an oat milk latte with a man who wore a wedding ring on a chain around his neck. Not his finger, his neck. Symbolism is a funny thing, isn't it? She leaned in close. Touched his knee. Kissed his cheek before she left. And then, 5 minutes later, she walked into our session with puffy eyes and sniffles, claiming she'd cried the whole ride over. "You're so brave for being here," she told me, tears streaming down her cheeks. I smiled, reached into my coat pocket, and pulled out a tissue. "We're both brave," I said. And I meant it. Just not in the way she thought. The first sign was the way she stopped humming in the kitchen. It used to be this off-key little tune from an old Disney movie, annoying, honestly, but it was hers. Then one morning, I walked in, and there was only silence and the rhythmic tapping of her nails against her phone. I made a joke about how the birds must have died, and she just smiled without looking up. Not absent-minded, not distracted, just not present. Her eyes didn't track me like they used to. They slid right past. I told myself she was tired. Overworked. Everyone hits a rough patch, right? But then she started sleeping with her back to me every night, inch by inch sliding toward the edge of the mattress like gravity had shifted. We used to fall asleep tangled together. Now even our pillows seemed to avoid each other. I chalked it up to stress. She had just started taking yoga again, and therapy was supposedly kicking up a lot of old emotions. She mentioned needing more self-care. I offered to cook more, take on extra chores, let her have quiet evenings to read or soak in the tub. She thanked me, told me I was so thoughtful. But her gratitude felt transactional. Polite. Like a thank you note written to a stranger. Then came the boundaries talk. She said it like it was this noble concept, this empowering new thing she was embracing. I'm realizing I need to establish boundaries for my own mental clarity, she told me over dinner one night, twirling her fork through untouched pasta. I nodded, not sure what that meant for us, exactly. She said it didn't mean she didn't love me, just that she was trying to find herself again. I lost so much of who I was, she said, and I wanted to ask who did you lose it to? But I didn't. I swallowed the question with my wine. She started going on long walks, always alone, always with her AirPods in. Sometimes I'd hear her laughing while pacing on the back patio, but when I stepped outside, she'd hang up quickly and smile like nothing happened. Just talking to Emily, she'd say, even though she hadn't mentioned Emily in years. One evening I glanced at her phone lighting up on the counter. The contact name was just an initial J. When I casually asked who that was, she blinked and said, "Oh, that's work stuff. Nothing important." And then she added a lock screen I'd never seen before. A week later, her Instagram went private. I couldn't even find her posts anymore, not unless I logged out and searched as a stranger. Her captions had changed, too. Less couple shots, more solo selfies with phrases like healing in silence and growth isn't always pretty. I asked if she wanted to take a weekend trip, just the two of us. Maybe, she said, her tone flat. I need to see how this week goes. I've got a lot on my plate. But that Saturday, I saw a new tote bag in the backseat of her car, brand new, monogrammed, not something she'd buy herself. I asked about it. She said it was a gift from her coworker for helping with a project. The next day, there were concert tickets on the fridge, held up by the same magnet we used for our grocery list. She didn't mention them. When I asked if they were for us, she looked confused, then quickly said, "Oh, no, that's next month. Just something with friends." I didn't push. I just smiled and marked the date in my own calendar. She started staying up later, claimed she was journaling. I'd walk past the office door and see her on Zoom calls with people I didn't recognize, muted, laughing silently, waving at the screen. Just a support group thing, she said. It helps to talk to people outside the bubble. I asked if I could join sometime. It's women only, she replied, a little too fast. At dinner, she talked about books she was reading, concepts like emotional labor and internalized roles. I listened. I really did. I wanted to understand. But somewhere between her quoting Glennon Doyle and setting a new password on our shared Netflix account, I started to feel like a guest in my own home. She rearranged the bedroom furniture one afternoon without asking. Said it felt more open, more her. She started lighting incense I'd never seen before. Started using words like alignment and vibrations. She bought new clothes, looser, artsy, less her usual style. Said she was embracing freedom of expression. I told her she looked beautiful and she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She stopped asking me about my day. If I brought up work, she'd nod politely, then pivot back to whatever she was reading or thinking about. Her eyes lit up more during phone calls than they ever did with me lately. I remember one night I stood in the kitchen, watching her through the window as she danced barefoot on the porch with her AirPods in. She looked alive, vibrant, untouchable. And I realized something terrifying. I wasn't even a character in whatever story she was living anymore. Just a background extra. But I still believed. I wanted to believe. I thought if I waited long enough, she'd turn around, see me standing there, and remember I was the man who helped her rebuild after everything. But I was wrong. She wasn't rebuilding with me, she was rebuilding over me. Like I was a grave she was planting flowers on. And the blooms were already starting to hide the headstone. It happened on a Tuesday, late afternoon, the kind of day where the sun casts long shadows through the blinds and everything feels too quiet. She was in the shower, the bathroom door opened just enough for the steam to curl out, and her phone buzzed twice on the kitchen counter where she'd left it charging. Normally, I wouldn't even look. Trust, after all, isn't just about restraint. It's about pretending restraint matters. But something about the timing, the specific sound of the notification, the vibration pattern, it was different. Like a muscle memory I hadn't trained, but somehow still understood. I walked past the counter slowly, Didn't even touch the phone. Just looked. The screen was still lit. One message preview was enough. Last night still on my lips. Miss you already. No name. Just the letter A with a flame emoji. I stared at the words, not really reading them, just absorbing the shape of them, the intention behind them. The message wasn't just inappropriate. It was intimate, close, personal in a way that came from repetition. This wasn't a first offense. This was an ongoing connection. That's when I saw the second message pop up, right beneath the first. Wish I could have stayed longer. Next time, tell your husband the yoga retreat runs through Sunday night. My stomach didn't drop. My heart didn't race. There was no surge of heat, no gut-wrenching twist. Just a click, a mental shift, like a man standing in the middle of a battlefield who suddenly remembers where he buried the landmines. I turned off the screen and walked away. Calm, controlled. There was no need to confront her, because confrontation implies the hope of resolution. And I wasn't looking for closure anymore. I wasn't interested in apologies, explanations, or tears. I was done listening to lies carefully wrapped in therapy jargon. She thought I was still lost in healing. She thought the new version of me, the quiet, patient husband who brought her tea and said nothing when she came home late, was real. That was her mistake. She forgot I used to build systems for a living. That precision and planning are my native languages. That silence is not the absence of thought. It's the blueprint of execution. I walked into the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the dresser she'd recently reorganized. Top drawer, candles and crystals. Second drawer, folded tank tops and sports bras she only wore when she was with him. I opened the third drawer, my drawer, and pulled out the envelope I'd hidden weeks ago. Inside, a flash drive, full of synced iCloud data she didn't know I had access to. Location pings, photos, audio snippets she accidentally backed up while recording her journal entries. She narrated her emotions now, spoke them aloud into her phone like some tragic heroine in a play she was directing. I think I'm falling for him, she'd said in one. I feel guilty, but not enough to stop. That last line had looped in my head for days. Not enough to stop. But now, with the messages confirmed, it wasn't guilt anymore. It was indifference, disregard. She didn't just cheat, she prioritized it. She protected it. I put the flash drive back in the envelope, slid it under a stack of bills in my drawer, and waited. A few minutes later, she walked into the room in her robe, towel around her hair, smiling. She kissed my cheek and asked what I wanted for dinner. I said I wasn't that hungry. Everything okay? She asked, tilting her head. I looked at her, and for a moment, just a second, I imagined her expression if I'd thrown the phone at the wall or screamed her lover's name. But instead, I smiled. Yeah, just a lot on my mind. She nodded, satisfied, and left to check her phone. I didn't follow. I didn't need to see her face fall when she read those messages again and realized what she'd left in plain sight. That wasn't the point. The point was, I was no longer her husband. Not really. I was a ghost haunting the house she thought she'd taken back. And now, I had all the time in the world to plan the moment I'd drag her into the cold. I didn't need to hire a private investigator. When you've lived with someone long enough, you become one by default. I started small. Not with her, but with the places she touched. Her gym shoes, for example, still had the sticker from the store tucked under the tongue, untouched soles, and yet she'd been training hard lately. I left them where they were, pristine as museum pieces, and moved to the car. The glove box held a receipt from a diner an hour away, time-stamped 11:48 a.m. on a Monday. She said she was home journaling. I folded it carefully, placed it in a file folder in my briefcase labeled car insurance, and kept going. I logged into our joint bank account, something she probably forgot I still had access to, and filtered for anything under $200. Most affairs don't happen at five-star restaurants. They happen in cash-only motels, second-rate cafes, gas stations that don't ask questions. I found 3 Uber transactions, all dropping off at the same address, a small co-op apartment I didn't recognize. She told me she was taking Ubers to therapy because driving interrupted the emotional prep time. So I requested a ride to that same address one evening while she was in the shower. I tipped the driver extra to keep quiet. When we pulled up, I didn't get out, I just watched. The building was dark, but the mailbox out front had a nameplate. A. Whitaker. Same initial as the one from her messages. I took a photo and left. Back home, I opened her laptop, not to snoop, but because she used it to sync photos from her phone. She wasn't careful with cloud settings. Most people aren't. I found hidden folders inside the Notes app, password protected, but the hint was first concert together. She thought I forgot, but I didn't. I typed in Arctic Monkeys 2009, and it opened like a casket. Inside, voice memos, unsent love letters, even a draft email titled, "If he ever finds out." I didn't read them all. I didn't need to. I took screenshots, converted them to PDFs, uploaded them to a flash drive hidden inside the hollow bottom of an old cologne bottle on my dresser. Then I went surgical. I started planting questions, soft traps, lines that sounded like casual curiosity. What did your therapist say about your dreams lately? You still carpooling with Lisa on Thursdays? Didn't you say you deleted Uber? Thought you were using Lyft now. Each time, she blinked a little longer, her smile delayed, her answers slightly curved. She was adjusting, mid-air, trying to land on a story that wouldn't expose the lie. I nodded every time, like a man content with the answers. Meanwhile, I created a dummy email, new name, no trace, and joined the same online healing circle she talked about so often. Women's only, supposedly. I uploaded a stock photo, gave myself a tragic backstory, and got accepted after 2 moderator messages. She never noticed it was me asking questions during the Zoom calls. I kept my camera off, mic muted, just a curious onlooker named Kara. Through that screen, I watched her glow when she talked about learning to feel again. I even heard her mention someone special she was afraid to name. He's different, she said. He makes me feel seen, finally. And every time she said it, she was sitting on the floor of the very house I paid for, sipping tea from the mug I bought her on our anniversary trip. I tracked her social media activity using a dummy Instagram account. I noticed patterns she posted when she was with him. The photos were always neutral, sunsets, books, coffee. But the metadata told me the truth. Geotags hidden in the files matched locations miles from where she said she'd be. One night, I asked if she wanted Thai food. She said she was craving sushi instead and left to grab it real quick. I said I'd wait. While she was gone, I placed a tiny sticker under the arch of her car door, just enough to tear if the door opened. When she returned an hour later, carrying sushi, smiling too wide, I checked the sticker. Torn. But the sushi bag had another receipt. Restaurant name didn't match. She'd lied again. I kissed her on the cheek and thanked her anyway. She never noticed I pocketed the receipt. I started mapping her lies like constellations, each one connecting to the next. Not just dates and times, but tones, micro-expressions, and movements. I studied her like an organism in a lab. I wasn't trying to catch her anymore. I already had. What I needed was to understand the depth of her descent, how far she'd wandered from the woman she pretended to be. Because once I knew that, I could tailor the response. Not an explosion. Not a fight. A performance. A carefully scripted finale that would make her believe she was forgiven, that she'd won back my heart. And when she finally let herself fall back into my arms with tears of relief, I'd remind her what it feels like to lose everything, slowly, coldly, and with surgical precision. I picked the venue with care, a cozy rooftop restaurant downtown, the kind with string lights, jazz murmuring in the background, and couples nestled close in quiet conversations. I told her it was to celebrate a breakthrough in therapy, a step towards starting fresh, and she glowed like a woman who believed she'd outrun her past. She wore the dress I bought her 2 anniversaries ago, red, the one she said made her feel powerful. She arrived late, of course, all smiles and apologies, kissed my cheek like it still meant something, and sat across from me, asking what we were celebrating exactly. I told her it was a surprise. We ordered wine. She talked about work, about how her boss was finally recognizing her potential. I listened, nodded, watched the way she twirled her hair, left hand, always the left, the one she used to stroke his face when she thought no one was watching. The waiter brought appetizers, and as she reached for the bruschetta, the projector behind her flickered to life. They used it on weekends for movie nights, cute, nostalgic stuff. But tonight, the screen showed a photo. Her. On a hotel bed. Laughing. Bare shoulders. A man's hand in the frame. Not his face, just his hand. Wedding ring on a chain around his neck. She didn't see it at first, not until a few people turned to look, eyes shifting toward us. Then she followed their gaze and froze. I took a sip of my wine. You were right, I said, calm, deliberate. This really is a great view. Her head snapped toward me, face pale, pupil shrinking. What is that? She whispered. I looked her dead in the eye. Proof. Visual. Timestamped. Taken the day you said you were with your mom, helping her with paperwork. She blinked, lips parting like she might try to scream, then pressed them together instead. That's not what it looks like, she said, her voice shaky but rehearsed. We were just talking. That was a joke. I didn't know someone took a picture. I tilted my head slightly, amused. Interesting joke. Tell me, does he always take off his ring before he sleeps with someone else's wife? Her jaw clenched. You don't understand it. He listens to me. He makes me feel seen. I set down my glass. So you burned a 10-year marriage for therapy sessions in a motel room? She leaned forward, whispering fast. You weren't there. You were emotionally absent. I needed someone, and you? She stopped, realizing the script wasn't landing. You never asked how I felt after everything. You just shut down and made everything about you. I nodded slowly. And yet I stayed. I listened. I gave you space to rebuild. I didn't call you names, didn't raise my voice. I waited for you to come back. And all the while, you were polishing a fantasy in someone else's bed. Her eyes darted around. A few patrons were watching now, quietly. She dropped her voice. Can we please talk about this somewhere else? I leaned in. We are talking about it, finally. You just don't like the lighting. She pushed back from the table, suddenly angry. You're being cruel. This is manipulative. You're humiliating me. I smiled faintly. You humiliated yourself. I just provided a better stage. Her breath caught. She tried to stand, then hesitated, probably realizing she didn't know where to go. She dropped back into her seat, hands trembling now. What do you want? She asked, voice small. You want me to beg? You want me to say I'm sorry? I shook my head. I don't want anything from you. That's what makes this different. I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to show you the mirror before I disappear. Her face shifted again, this time, not into rage, but something far worse for her, fear. Please, she whispered, leaning forward, please don't tell anyone else. Don't ruin my life over a mistake. I stared at her. One mistake is a choice. Repeating it is a character. She went quiet. A full minute passed, the silence broken only by the clinking of glasses around us, the soft thrum of jazz still playing in the background. She looked like she wanted to cry, but the tears wouldn't come, too proud to fall, too ashamed to matter. I picked up my napkin, folded it neatly, and placed it on the table. Dinner's paid for. Stay if you want. I stood slowly. She looked up at me, desperation bleeding into her expression. Are you leaving me? She asked, like it hadn't occurred to her this wasn't another argument, another game. I looked down at her. Not yet. Then I turned and walked toward the elevator, leaving her sitting there beneath the flickering lights, unsure whether I was bluffing or simply giving her time to choke on the silence she created. She showed up at the house 3 days later, unannounced, pounding on the door like a debt collector and screaming my name with a voice that barely sounded human anymore. I didn't rush to answer. I watched her through the peephole, hair wild, eyes darting, clutching her purse like a lifeline, and only opened the door when her fist stopped and her breathing turned ragged. She stepped in like a storm, pushing past me without a word, as if she still owned the place, as if the front door hadn't been a symbolic line in the sand. You think you're better than me now? She snapped, spinning to face me. You think you're some perfect little saint because you caught me? I didn't reply. I just locked the door behind her and waited. She began pacing the living room, gesturing like a woman possessed. You don't get to do this. You don't get to act like you were some flawless husband. You smothered me. You were always there, always watching, always waiting for me to fall. It was like living in a damn surveillance state. I folded my arms, expression blank. I trusted you. She flinched slightly. You controlled me, she shot back, but the words had less bite now, as if even she didn't believe them. You wanted a step-forward wife, someone who'd sit quietly while you played your little mind games and treated marriage like a checklist. I stepped forward slowly. I wanted a partner. You chose a stranger with a motel key. Her mouth twitched. The foundation was cracking. She tried a new angle. This is your fault. You stopped touching me like I mattered. You stopped being present. You stopped trying. I tilted my head. I stopped trusting. She laughed then, a bitter, hollow sound. Oh, now you're the victim? Is that what this is? Poor, heartbroken husband gets to play martyr while the evil wife gets burned at the stake. I walked past her and sat down, calm as a judge. I'm not a victim. I'm a witness. She stared at me, unsure. To what? I met her gaze. To your decline. To watching you rot from the inside out and wear the stink like perfume. That hit her. She staggered back, like the weight of the sentence landed square in her ribs. Her voice dropped an octave, venomous now. You think you're so clever. So cold. But you're just empty. That's what you are. You think this makes you strong? You're a hollow shell with a hard stare. That's all you've got left. I leaned back. And yet you still came here, hoping the shell would let you back in. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her hands trembled. She tried again. You were boring. Predictable. A robot. I needed something real. Something alive. Something that made me feel like a woman again. I nodded slowly. So you found a man who treated you like a disposable thrill. Congratulations. She looked away, eyes blinking hard. At least he saw me. I stood. He saw what you pretended to be. I saw the whole thing. Her lip curled. I made one mistake, I cut her off. You made one choice. And then another. And another. Each one easier than the last. Until I was no longer a person to you. Just an obstacle. Her voice broke, but her pride refused to let her cry. You were never really there for me, she said, quieter now. Not like he was. I nodded once. Then go to him. She didn't move. You don't mean that. I walked to the door, opened it, and stood aside. You're free to prove me wrong. She didn't leave. She stood there, eyes wide, the mask slipping. You're really going to let this go? Just like that? After everything? I looked her over, up and down, as if seeing her for the first time. There's nothing left to hold on to. She stepped toward me, suddenly gentle, voice softer now, almost pleading. We can fix this. I'll do the work. I'll go to real therapy. We'll start fresh. Please. I shook my head slowly. You don't want to fix this. You want to avoid the consequences. She reached out like she might touch me, then thought better of it. Her voice cracked. I never meant to hurt you. I nodded. But you did anyway. She stood there, breathing hard, looking around the room like she might find a memory to cling to. There was nothing left for her here. The photos were gone. The books were boxed. The kitchen cold. The air carried silence like a sentence. And the worst part, the part she couldn't scream away, was that I wasn't angry. I wasn't broken. I was just finished. And that terrified her more than any fury ever could. She thought I would stew. That I'd sit in the ruins, licking my wounds, maybe scrolling through old photos late at night while she figured herself out. What she didn't know was that the second I closed that front door behind her, I didn't grieve. I drafted a blueprint. My revenge wasn't a scream, it was a signature. The first step was simple: control the terrain. I logged into every shared account, banking, utilities, streaming, even the damn pet food subscription, and changed the passwords. Anything that bore both our names was immediately frozen or separated. The joint account we used for bills? I transferred my salary into a new solo account and flagged the old one for suspicious activity. The car title that was under both names? I had it towed to a secure garage and transferred full ownership with documentation she'd forgotten she signed during a refinancing 3 years back. She wouldn't realize it was gone until she walked into the lot and found an empty space where her escape used to be. Next came the evidence, compiled into an immaculate digital archive. Emails, messages, photos, timestamps, receipts. I created folders. One for the lawyer. One for her boss. One for her parents. One that contained a recording of a Zoom call where she described in detail how being with A feels like real therapy, except way more satisfying. That quote would come in handy. I met with a divorce attorney the next morning. Quiet, efficient, aggressive. I told him everything, handed over the flash drive, and watched him skim through it without blinking. He asked if I wanted to pursue full asset separation in primary custody. My answer was yes. Not because I wanted to destroy her finances, but because I needed her to feel the weight of choices. I had all the documentation showing she'd lied about her whereabouts, her use of funds, even falsified a medical emergency to skip town one weekend. That alone gave me leverage. While the paperwork was being prepared, I visited her workplace, not to storm in, not to make a scene, but to meet discreetly with HR. I presented a folder marked confidential and said only this: I'm not asking you to punish her. I'm simply informing you of a situation that might affect the reputation of your brand. Inside were screenshots showing her intimate conversations with a client she was assigned to. She had violated protocol, and whether they acted or not, the seed was planted. Her credibility? Compromised. Her career path? Slanted. After that, I scheduled lunch with her parents. Calmly, respectfully. I showed them the evidence, explained my intentions, and told them I wasn't seeking sympathy, I was offering transparency. Her mother cried. Her father just stared at the screen, jaw clenched. They'd always defended her, but even they couldn't spin this. I let them sit with the truth and left without asking them to take sides. The ripple was already in motion. Then I called her best friend, the one she used as a decoy so often, claiming she was with her when she was with him. I asked her to meet for coffee. When I showed her the evidence, her face went white. She used me, she whispered, eyes wide with betrayal. Repeatedly, I said, I figured you'd want to know. She did more damage on my behalf that afternoon than I ever could have. Group chats were detonated. Friends started asking questions. Whispers became certainty. I never posted anything publicly, never smeared her name online, but I didn't have to. The people closest to her stopped responding to her texts. The ones she counted on to vouch for her silence suddenly had none to offer. She called me 3 days into the storm. Why are people turning on me? She demanded. I replied with one sentence, because they finally know you. I hung up. Then I moved out of the house. Quietly. Efficiently. I hired a moving company to come while she was at work. Took what was mine, left what wasn't, and had the locks changed that same evening. She returned to a notice taped to the door. For all legal correspondence, contact my attorney. No threats. No drama. Just procedure. The final blow was psychological. I mailed her a small package. Inside was the Arctic Monkeys concert ticket from 2009, the password to her locked folder, the one she thought was secret, and a single sentence written in pen on the back. You were my favorite lie. That's when she knew. Not only had she been caught, she'd been outplayed at every level. Her messages stopped coming after that. No more apologies, no more attempts to twist the narrative. I had taken away everything she once used to manipulate me: money, trust, social validation, comfort, and left her exactly where she wanted to be. Alone. Free. And completely forgotten. The invitation said Friendsgiving, but there was nothing friendly about what was coming. Her sister was hosting it this year, a cozy evening, 20-something guests, a long table covered in rustic fall decor and Pinterest-level plating. She begged me to come, said it would mean a lot for her family to see us rebuilding, and I agreed, nodding like a man who still believed in second chances. She wore a beige knit dress that clung in all the right places, painted on a smile that didn't reach her eyes, and held my arm like we were still a team. The room lit up when we walked in. Her cousin smiled, her aunts offered wine, and for a brief moment she looked alive again. Like she really thought we were back. Like she believed the world had forgotten. What she didn't know was that everyone in that room already had the truth. Her sister had the flash drive. Her best friend had seen the hotel footage. Her parents had read every message, saw every lie in full color. All of them had received my quiet outreach over the past week. Not a smear campaign, just the truth, packaged neatly, delivered with a disclaimer. Do with this what you will. And they did. They watched her enter like a stranger walking into her own funeral, not realizing the casket was already open. Her father didn't hug her. Her mother offered a tight smile, then turned away. Her best friend barely looked up from her glass. She didn't notice the silence at first, too wrapped up in the illusion she'd been clinging to. She made jokes, dropped compliments, tried to steer conversations like a ship refusing to see the iceberg. But every laugh died quicker than it should have. Every sentence she tossed into the air landed with a dull thud. No one was biting. The food came out: turkey, stuffing, cranberry sauce, but the warmth in the room had drained. She sat beside me, sipping her wine faster now, trying to regain control. Then her sister stood. She tapped her glass once, looked directly at her, and said calmly, "Before we toast, there's something that needs to be addressed." The room stiffened. She froze. Her smile twitched. "Is this about me?" she said with a nervous chuckle. Her sister nodded. "Yes. You owe everyone here an explanation. Or would you like me to read the transcript?" And then, silence, real silence, the kind that hums in your ears. Her face contorted, first with confusion, then with panic. "What transcript? What are you talking about?" she asked, voice cracking slightly. Her sister didn't flinch. She reached into a folder and held up 2 sheets of paper. The room watched as she began to read. Word for word. Her messages to her lover. Descriptions of our marriage. Her lies. Her manipulation. "I only stay because he's too weak to leave," one line read. "He's a routine, not a man." I watched her eyes widen, mouth open, one hand instinctively covering her face. "That's not. I didn't mean those things. I was venting. That's private," she stammered, eyes darting around for support. No one moved. No one spoke. Her father stood and walked out. Her best friend got up and walked to me, putting a hand on my shoulder before taking the empty seat beside me. That broke her. "You're all just going to believe this? You're really going to turn on me over some texts? You don't know what he's like. He's cold. He's manipulative. He set this up." Her voice was sharp now, shrill, desperately lashing out in every direction. Her mother quietly set her wine down and walked away without a word. "This is insane," she shouted. "He's making me look like a monster." She turned to me, eyes pleading now. Tell them you're not innocent either. Tell them you pushed me away." I met her gaze, calm and unreadable. I didn't say a word. That's what shattered her. She stumbled back a step, tears forming now, real ones, not the performance kind. Her voice dropped, trembling. "Please, say something." I didn't. I just watched her. And everyone else did too. No one rushed to comfort her. No one tried to stop what was happening. She had spun the web so intricately that when it collapsed, it took her with it completely. Her lover, I'd learned, had already blocked her number the day I sent him a copy of the hotel bill, her texts, and a polite message that said, "Just thought you'd want to know who you've been sharing a bed with." She was alone. Utterly, completely alone. And yet, I stayed seated. Didn't walk out. Didn't gloat. I just sat there, the quiet center of the storm she created. She broke in front of everyone, ranted, wept, begged. And no one lifted a finger. Her voice became noise. Her presence became weight. And I let her feel it. Every second of it. Because sometimes justice doesn't come in fire or fury. Sometimes it comes in the silence of a room that no longer sees you as anything worth saving. It was her cousin's engagement party, a swanky hall packed with chandeliers and champagne flutes, everyone dressed like they were auditioning for a magazine spread, all pretending their lives were perfect. I hadn't planned to attend, but when her mother sent me a personal invite, after everything, I knew exactly why. They wanted her to face it. The reckoning. And they wanted witnesses. I arrived late, just as the music dipped, and the toasts were winding down. She was near the bar, surrounded by her remaining sympathizers, laughing too loud, gripping a glass of white wine like it was a lifeline. She saw me and froze mid-sip, eyes widening for just a second before she smoothed her face into that polished smile she used to wear when lying came easy. I didn't walk up to her. I stood beside her father, who simply nodded and whispered, "She doesn't know what's coming, does she?" I shook my head. Then I saw him, the affair partner, lurking near the exit, clearly dragged there under the illusion that this was a harmless social event. Poor guy. Probably thought he was getting serious now. As if her family would welcome the man who'd wrecked a decade of marriage. I made my move during the final toast. The room was quiet. Glasses raised. I stepped forward with my own. "To truth," I said loudly. "To loyalty. And to finally being free of people who mistake secrecy for strength." She turned sharply. Her friends glanced between us. The tension popped like glass under pressure. I looked directly at her and kept going. "Let's also raise a glass to all the therapy sessions held in hotel rooms, to emotional growth achieved between someone else's sheets, and to the real men who have to sneak out the back when the lights turn on." Gasps broke across the room. Her mother dropped her fork. Her best friend covered her mouth. The affair partner went pale and started inching toward the exit like a cockroach when the kitchen light comes on. She exploded. "You're humiliating me," she shrieked. "You think this makes you look strong? You look pathetic." I laughed once. Not as pathetic as a woman begging a married man to validate her worth. Not as pathetic as dragging your boyfriend to a party full of people who already know what you are. Her hands shook, wine sloshing over her fingers. "You never loved me right. You were cold. You treated me like an accessory." I took a step closer. "And you treated me like a doormat. Except now the doormat got up, cleaned himself off, and slammed the damn door behind you." She threw her glass, missed, hit the floor. It shattered. Her father shouted her name. Her sister grabbed her arm. "You're a monster," she screamed. "You set this all up? You poisoned my friends. You turned my family against me." "No," I said, voice steel. "You did that all by yourself. I just held up the mirror." Then her lover, stupid, sweating, tried to step in. "Look, man, I didn't know she was still." I cut him off with a glare. "Save it. You knew. She lied to me with the same mouth she used on you. You're not special. You're a prop in her therapy fantasy." He backed off. Her voice cracked now. I was lost. I didn't know who I was. I made a mistake. I laughed coldly. "You made a choice. And then another. And another. You only call it a mistake now because you got caught." People were filming. Her mother was crying. Her father had to sit down. Her cousin, the one getting engaged, was whispering to her fiancé, eyes wide with horror. "You were everything to me," she whispered, breaking now, mascara bleeding down her face. "And you were convenient to me," I said. "Until you weren't. Until I saw who you really were." She reached for me. I stepped back. Don't touch me. Don't beg me. Don't rewrite history. You set fire to something beautiful, and now you want pity because your hands are burned. She collapsed into a sob on the floor, surrounded by shards of glass and silence. No one moved to help her. Not one person. Not even him. I straightened my jacket, nodded once to her mother, and turned toward the exit. I didn't run. I didn't storm off. I walked, measured, calm, dignified, while behind me the woman who once wore control like perfume finally drowned in the smoke of her own fire. 6 months later, she was a ghost, whispered about in passing, seen only in glimpses. Her job let her go quietly after a client forwarded screenshots of her messages, flagged for breach of ethics and conduct. No scandal, just a polite escort out of the building she once called her second home. Her coworkers didn't reach out. Some unfollowed. Some blocked. The rest just acted like she never existed. Her best friend stopped replying. Her family remained stone silent. She moved to a different city, smaller, cheaper, duller, where no one knew her name and no one cared to ask. She worked the register at a discount furniture outlet, hair tied back, eyes hollow, a shell walking through beige walls and polyester break rooms. The man she'd thrown everything away for? Vanished. Disappeared the moment she showed up at his place crying, jobless, desperate for comfort, for a future. He told her he didn't do baggage, then ghosted her so fast her texts never even turned blue. She tried to spin it online at first, new city, new beginnings, cryptic captions about growth after loss. But there were no likes, no comments, no audience, just silence. And then, one rainy Thursday evening, she showed up at my doorstep. I saw her through the peephole, soaked to the bone, makeup smeared, her once pristine coat clinging to her like a worn-out memory. I opened the door, not out of curiosity, but closure. She didn't speak at first, just stood there, lips trembling, eyes searching my face for a trace of something, warmth, regret, anything human. I miss you, she finally said, voice cracking like thin glass. I've lost everything. My job, my friends. I don't even recognize myself anymore. I said nothing, just leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. You were the only one who ever really saw me, she continued, crying now. I was so stupid, so blind. I thought I needed freedom, but all I did was destroy the one person who ever loved me right. She stepped forward, reaching out. Please. I still love you. I looked at her hand, then her eyes. Calm, unmoved. Strange, I said. I don't even remember your name anymore. She staggered like I'd hit her. Her arm dropped. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I stepped back, slowly closed the door, and watched through the glass as she stood there for a minute longer before finally walking away into the dark. No second chances. No redemption arc. Just silence, rain, and the echo of a woman who thought she was irreplaceable until the man she betrayed learned how to disappear with dignity. And now she lives with that silence every single day. Thank you for listening to my story. Where are you from? Did this hit the way you expected? I'd love to hear what you think.